The Watership Down podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There will be spoilers. This episode is recorded, edited and narrated by Newell Fisher. It is scripted by Newell Fisher and Erik Steps. Hello, and welcome to the Watership Down podcast episode 128, which, like episode 50, is being recorded in my crudido due to us being on respite leave at the moment, so things are a bit different. This is also why the episode is late, and the same will probably happen next week. In this episode, we'll be looking at Season 1, Episode 6 of the TV series, and Episode 6 of the series overall, The Raid. First though, a bit of burrow keeping. First of all, there is a continuity error in episode 5 that I didn't spot last week. I think this was because I was a little distracted by all the imported North American rolling stock. At least that's my excuse. On the way to Ephrafa, the three rabbits and Kihar encounter the Iron Road, Scarecrow and River, in that order. However, during their flight from Ephrafa, the order is Scarecrow, River, Iron Road. So somehow the Scarecrow has crossed the river and found another field. Or is it another Scarecrow? Anyway. The appeal for the Rabbit Welfare Association and Fund is ongoing. Details in the notes. Please give what you can. And I am still showcasing Watership Down themed art. Again, details in the notes. I haven't had any submitted for a while now. It would be good to have another contribution, and I have no problem with featuring more work by previous contributors. Erik Steps' Visit to England. Part 1. Owsler member Erik Steps, whose email asking for information about how to access the sites in the novel I read out and responded to in the beach hangar on Watership Down in episode 108, recently visited the UK from Germany and has sent an extensive account of his visit, which I'll be sharing over the next few episodes, about a day at a time. I'm missing out day 1, which was about his arrival in the UK and getting to know the area. Quote, Day 2. Watership Down and Nuthanger Farm. On the next day was the big moment for which I have waited so long, to finally stand on the top of Watership Down and see the place which inspired such a wonderful and fantastic story. After breakfast we drove the 7 miles to Watership Down. At the foot of the down near Kingsclear is a car park where you can easily park your car and then can go directly on a route that leads to Watership Down. On our drive to this place, we already used the road which is seen in the movie, the one between the Down and Nuthanger Farm. It is a very narrow lane and you must be aware at all time of approaching cars from the other side. In addition, along the roadsides are many high hedges, and it is actually not easy to see Watership Down from this road, and especially not if you have to concentrate on driving. But we approached at the aforementioned car park safely. It is called White Hill Car Park, and then began our tour on top of the Down. At the road is a nice little chart which tells some facts about Watership Down, and especially its many inhabitants. Of course, Richard Adams' famous book is also mentioned here. From then on, a nice path leads up to the Down, and it is a walk of 15 minutes to the beach hangar. The first thing you will notice is that a lot of parts of the Down are fenced off, and also a second way branched off on the way. This way and the whole part on the right side is meant for riders. We saw two when we walked up. It is actually possible to enter this riding area without much trouble, but I will talk about it at a later point about this. Watership Down truly is a lovely place, and soon you will have a breathtaking view over the whole surrounding area, which Dandelion referred to in his famous quote, "Come and look, you can see the whole world." Getting nearer and nearer to the beach hangar, and feeling the wind, the calm air, and the silence of this place, there was only one thing missing from making it a truly magical moment. So I played Climbing the Down from the very talented Angela Morley, and it was with this triumphant music I arrived at the place I wanted to visit for so long. At the place where the beach hangar is, a smaller tree was planted nearby. I heard the reason was that the original huge beech tree was unfortunately destroyed during a thunderstorm in 2004, and they planted this tree as a replacement. 2 plaques are placed here, one with the famous quote from Dandelion I've already mentioned, and the second to honour Richard Adams. Also, some names of characters from the book, like Fiver, Hazel or Kihar, are engraved on the frame that surrounds this tree. Thanks to Newell Fisher, I know that this tree is supposed to be the one we see in the movie, and which gave Watership Down the unique look of a high hill with just one big tree on it. But this is not how Watership Down is described in the book, because there the rabbits have their warren in the beach hangar. The beach hangar is right behind the tree, enclosed by a fence and a gate. Luckily, it turned out to be that this gate was open, and no sign indicated we were not allowed to go there. So we now visited the actual beach hangar, the place where the rabbits lived in the book. It is a place of outstanding beauty. A lot of old trees are standing here, or even lying. It is quiet, and you feel a sense of peace not many places are able to give you. It was here where I started to read some parts from the book aloud. Of course, I started with the famous passage where the rabbits reached the top of Warship Down, and Dandelion said his famous words. The second passage I read, after I moved a bit more into the beach hangar, was Hazel's passing. The beach hangar is actually larger than it looks from the outside. We explored a bit in the inside. Unfortunately, no rabbits were seen, but also it wasn't the time for them to be outside. On one tree, we made an interesting discovery, a carving of the black rabbit of inlay, how it looked in the movie. We spent quite some time here, and then moved back to the beech tree with the plaques. There was one task still to do for me here. As you remember, I mentioned that some names were engraved in the wood of the frame that surrounded the tree. I felt like that one name was missing. Actually, someone had already added Violet, the poor doe who was killed by a hawk in the movie. The scene from the movie that probably messed me up the most was Blackavar's gruesome death, when he tries to stop Woundwort, but is immediately overpowered by him, and then being brutally killed with a bite in the throat. So I decided to honour this hero, the only victim of the Efraffan attack on Watership Down in the movie. In the book he survives. And what better place could I choose than at the tree where he gave his life? So I started the strenuous work of carving the name, which consists of 9 letters. It took some while, but the name should be readable, and I hope other visitors will also be able to read it in the future. End quote. Thank you so much for that, Erik. Next week, continuing the second day of his visit, Erik walks the route to Nuthanger Farm, which is quite appropriate, really. Anyway, what's Hazel up to now? Season 1, Episode 6, The Raid. The 6th episode of the Watership Down TV series was first broadcast in the UK on the 2nd of November 1999. It was written by Roger Sennett. There will be a link to the full episode on YouTube in the notes. The 6th episode is the first one that begins with a 1-minute recap of former episodes. In this case, that is just a recap of the last episode, which is a bit odd as it has no relevance to this one, which does not involve Efrafa. This recap is more or less repeated in the next episode, which is very much about Efrafa. We open at dawn on Watership Down. Hazel emerges from underground for morning silflay. He scratches his ears and watches the sunrise before being interrupted by Hannah the mouse. She knows Hazel has something on his mind. He asks her if she ever thinks about the future. This has been brought on by his recent experiences in Efrafa. Hannah doesn't want to hear about that dreadful place, but Hazel adds that not everything about Efrafa is bad. Hannah knows he is thinking about Primrose and ribs him about this. Hazel replies he does want Primrose to be part of his future, but is also thinking about the futures of everyone else on the down. They need more rabbits. And now something odd happens. I ended last week's episode following Hazel's appalling lack of judgment at Efrafa by saying that the raid on Nuthanger Farm was also his idea. But here it is Hannah who points out that there are rabbits in cages at Nuthanger. She suggests getting them out, which is easy for her to say. And Hazel just goes along with it, having not even checked the farm out first, which is arguably even worse. He wakes Fiver and then literally bumps into Pipkin and asks him if he wants an adventure, which of course he does. And so in broad daylight they all three head off down the slope to light music before Keehar makes a terrible landing, colliding with poor Pipkin, who is having a rough morning and blaming the stupid slippery grass. Hazel explains what they are doing to Keehar, who thinks Hazel is after another girlfriend. The plan to get rabbits out of Nuthanger is news to Fiver, and Pipkin now remembers the cat from episode 1 when they stopped off at Nuthanger for some flayrah on the way to Watership Down. Hazel reminds him about the dog, which is odd as I don't think they encountered the dog before. Another continuity error? Hazel tells Pipkin that he will be the lookout for any signs of the cat or dog. He tells Keehar to let everyone else know they will soon have something to celebrate, and they set off again. Fiver seems to have been convinced by Keehar that Hazel is after another lady rabbit, but Hazel says Keehar is just full of fish. They arrive at Nuthanger and pause by a stone wall of the kind I don't think you get at farms in Hampshire. Hazel checks if the other two are ready, but Fiver is having one of his moments. His rhyming vision is run fast, run hard, the black rabbit races across the yard. A noise, the noise. He warns that the black rabbit is close. Hazel says he always is, but Pipkin wants to turn back. I don't blame him. But Hazel's only concern is that he is scaring Pipkin. Back on Watership Down, Keehar arrives with a mouthful of grass, which he makes a great show of spitting out. His grand announcement of what Hazel is doing is greeted with indifference. Hawkbit just says he hasn't been the same since Ephrafa, while Bigwig thinks a raid will do him good. Huffily, Kihar takes the grass underground to start making a bed for the new lady rabbits. Back at Nuthanger Farm, Hazel and his companions emerge from between some milk urns. Hazel indicates a barn and says that is where Hannah has said the hutch rabbits are. For what I think is the first time we see the Nuthanger dog, who is asleep in his kennel. He looks exactly like the dog they encountered at the River Enbourne in episode 1, a kind of Rottweiler. Fiver urges extra caution, and they cross the yard into the barn. Pipkin seems to lose his direction for a moment, and then Fiver says he can smell a cat. So can Hazel, but he says the scent might be old. He tells Pipkin to keep lookout for the cat. Pipkin is afraid, and asks what to do if one shows up. Hazel reminds him what Hannah says about cats, the insults being the words Hazel himself used to the cat to provoke it into a hurried attack in chapter 24 of the novel, Pop-eyed backdoor saucer scrapers. Once again, Hazel's agency is transferred to Hannah. He says they can handle a cat and leaves the young Pipkin on lookout. He repeats Hannah's phrase incorrectly as Hazel goes inside. And now we see the cat, a light brown in colour, emerge from the exact same place the rabbits did. It growls and licks its lips as it looks towards the barn and waits. Inside the barn, Hazel spots the hutch on some hay bales. Fiver doesn't like this place, and who can blame him, so Hazel suggests they get on with it. Fiver says he can't wait to get the old Hazel back, that he has been mooning over Primrose ever since Ephrafa. He is now acting like Bigwig with a sore toe. Tellingly, this Hazel says the old Hazel couldn't get Primrose out of Ephrafa. Perhaps there needs to be a new Hazel. Is this really the moment for this conversation? Scaring a hen, they reach the bales, and Fiver gives Hazel a boost to get up to the hutch. So what is in this hutch? Certainly not the same as the two couples of the novel. One of the rabbits is Clover, more or less as in the novel. She is light in colour and is voiced by Gemma Arterton, who was Strawberry Fields in the Bond film Quantum of Solace 2008. But the other three are, seemingly, two older and larger does and a buck, who are satisfied with their lot. One doe is darker brown, one dark and light grey, and the lop is light-coloured. All three have slightly upper-class English accents. Clover wonders where Hazel's cage is. When he says he doesn't have one, the brown doe asks who feeds him. When he says he feeds himself, Clover comments he isn't doing a very good job, that he is all skin and bones. The grey doe says he should get a man to look after him. He is about to explain that they feed themselves when Fiver asks what is happening. He explains that Fiver and he are there to help them escape. From what? Asks the grey doe. Hazel starts to climb up onto the hutch to try and open it. He tells Fiver to check on Pipkin. Fiver is growing more nervous. The longer they stay, the worse it feels. As Hazel reaches the roof of the hutch, he tells them to be ready to run when the door opens. Only Clover looks enthusiastically at him. At the barn door, Pipkin moves inside just as the cat arrives at the door and crouches ready. Fiver runs up to Pipkin. We see the cat in close-up. Hazel is chewing through the leather hasp of the hutch, a task undertaken by Bigwig, Blackberry, Speedwell and Dandelion in the novel. Hazel is quickly through the hasp, and the front of the hutch falls away. Hazel urges them out. The lop is the first out, and speaking for the first time, inquires as to where exactly they are going. He manages to sound pedantic in one line. Clover says they will find out when they get there. Ah, the impulsiveness of the young. The grey doe says that is a bit vaguish. The two older does are now the only ones left in the hutch. Hazel tells them to hurry up, to which the brown one, who is eating, responds that it doesn't do to eat too quickly, as it give one a funny tummy. We see Pipkin back outside as Fiver asks him how he is doing. Just fine, apparently. There is no sign of any old... He turns around. The cat is perched on a barrel right by him. He screams, "Cat!" The cat pounces. Fiver grabs him by the scruff just in time and pulls him inside. The cat lands in a puddle. Fiver and Pipkin run inside the barn. The cat, wet and angry, follows them. Fiver tries to warn Hazel, but it is too late. The cat lands right where Pipkin and Fiver had just leapt away from. Hazel and the hutch rabbits look on in horror. The lop buck climbs back into the hutch. The cat leaps and overshoots Hazel and Clover, who tells him she doesn't really care for this outside business. The cat is stalking them. Hazel tells Fiver and Pipkin to get Clover away. They are hiding nearby, and Fiver asks Hazel if he is going to do anything foolish and bigwigish. Hazel says heaven forbid, as he directly confronts a cat. He then proceeds to deliver a hind leg kick to the cat's head that stuns it. Foolish and bigwigish. Fiver has just summed up this Hazel quite well. Pipkin asks about the other rabbits, to which Fiver comments they don't need any more cat food running about. The cat is coming round already. Hazel bolts for the door. The cat cuts him off with one leap. He runs back inside the barn. As Pipkin, Fiver and Clover run away, the dog wakes up and starts barking. They reach cover and look back to see if Hazel will escape, except for Clover, who tries some of the undergrowth for taste. She is not impressed, and asks if they should just wander off. Fiver says they can't leave Hazel behind. She comments on how bossy he is. Back on Watership Down, Blackberry is trying to convince the bucks to help provide bedding for the new arrivals. Keehar feels the need to hold forth on the importance of good nesting, and shares how he once shared one with a beautiful gull called Natasha. They aren't even pretending that this Keehar isn't just Eastern European now. Why not just call one of the English rabbits Toby? Keehar impersonates Natasha's not-so-beautiful cawing, but to him she sounded like music. Blackberry and Hawkbit look depressed, but Blackberry humours Keehar by asking if he knows all about love. He does indeed. Dandelion asks if Hazel is definitely bringing back rabbits. Keehar says that Hazel said he would be back before sunset, just like Natasha did. Bigwig says there are plenty more gulls in the sky. Why doesn't Keehar fly and check on how Hazel is doing? Keehar isn't sure if he can. His heart is so heavy. But then, in a partial impersonation of Keehar's takeoff in the 1978 film, he manages to get airborne. Back at Nuthanger Farm, the cat is prowling for Hazel in the barn, seemingly ignoring the 3 indolent hutch rabbits nearby who couldn't even put up a fight. Hazel knocks a pile of pots, which brings the cat down on him. As he takes shelter, the cat claws at him. He tells the cat to "Get back, you stinking cat." That should work. The cat speaks for the first time, telling him to "Give up now, Longear. So much simpler to just give up." Easy for her to say. As she keeps clawing at him, Hazel sees an opening and bolts for the barn door. As he runs from the farm, the awake dog barks at him. We see the farmer open a door nearby as he hears the dog barking. He is dressed in a way that suggests he is not from Hampshire, or even the UK for that matter. I'm unaware of any farmer from that county who in the 20th century would have worn that kind of round-rimmed hat or those dungarees. Do I really need to go into this again after last week's train-based rant? Moving on. He raises a shotgun. We see Hazel run. The farmer cocks the gun. A shot rings out. Birds take off from bushes. Pipkin nearby asks what it was. Clover knows. It was the fire stick, a man thing that lets him kill from far away. Fiver says he warned Hazel that the black rabbit was close. Pipkin asks if he has Hazel. Fiver trembles and says not yet, but he will find him, unless they find him first. And now we're in the track that leads from Nuthanger Farm to the road. Fiver starts searching for Hazel. Overhead, Keehar soars in the sky. Despite missing Natasha, life is good. Reaching the point in the stone wall they arrive by, Fiver asks Pipkin if he knows how to get back to Watership Down. He needs to get Clover back there. Clover says she hopes she will learn how to be outside and she hopes Hazel is all right. We see Hazel, apparently okay, emerge from long grass. He hides in a storm grain just as the shadow of the farmer crosses it. And now we're with Fiver, who is hiding in long grass nearby and sees the farmer searching along the track in the distance. He hears Keehar, who lands on the track. He asks Fiver if the man had a barking stick that made a big sound. Fiver nods. Keehar says that with the big sound comes black pebbles. The man rounds a corner and Fiver emerges from cover. Fiver tells Keehar what has happened. Keehar says that Hazel will need help if he has been bitten by the black pebbles. Fiver doesn't know where to start looking. Keehar angrily reminds him of his ability to have visions, but Fiver says he can't make them happen. Keehar says he must try, so he does. Almost immediately he hears Hazel's voice echoing in the wind. He knows now that Hazel is alive and no longer at the farm. He is inside something. Keehar helpfully shakes a tin can and suggests they look at all inside places. Fiver allows himself an irritated look. They search up and down the lane without luck until Fiver spots the storm drain. Instantly he knows that is where Hazel is. They call into the drain. At first nothing. Then as they move away, Hazel responds. He is lying some way into the drain and has a shotgun wound in his hind leg. Hazel says he knew Fiver wouldn't leave him to the black rabbit. They both enter the tunnel of the drain. Keehar asks if the black pebble bit him. Hazel says there was a sound and he felt pain like nothing he had experienced before. He winces. Fiver says he heard Hazel calling him, but Hazel says he didn't. Kihar eyes the wound. Then, in a rare moment of the TV series being more explicit than a 1978 film, Hazel cries out as Kihar digs out the single shotgun pellet with his beak. Kihar spits out the pellet and tells Hazel to rest now. An indeterminate time later, all three emerge from the drain. It is daytime and Hazel is apparently completely okay, not even a limp. Fiver suggests going home. Hazel says that is a beautiful word. He hopes Pipkin and Clover made it back okay. Fiver admonishes him, telling him not to start worrying again. As they make their way back, Hazel says they could have got more rabbits. One is better than none, comments Fiver. It is sunset on Watership Down. Hazel is with Bigwig, Hawkbit and Clover. Bigwig and Hawkbit say they would have gone to Nuthanger with him if they'd known, as they did, of course, in the novel, along with Dandelion and Speedwell, while Pipkin stayed on the down after his initial scouting mission with Hazel, and Fiver stayed behind, disapproving of the whole venture, with good reason. Hazel, oddly, says that sometimes it's better to run, meaning not to bother planning. Clover says she always wondered what outside looked like. Hazel is sorry he didn't get her friends out, but Clover says not to be. They are happy where they are. Nurse Kihar lands and tells Hazel to rest. Hannah emerges with Blackberry and tells him he has a nice fresh bed, which Hazel is grateful for. Fiver asks Hazel what he is thinking about. He replies, Ephrafa and Primrose. He promised he'd go back for her. Kihar says love hurts. Hazel agrees, sometimes. They watch the sunset. Is it canon? This episode of the TV series is roughly equivalent to chapters 24 to 26 and 28 to 29 of the 1972 novel, though Hazel's rapid recovery from being shot negates the entire At the Foot of the Hill sequence, and both forays to Nuthanger Farm are combined into one. The lazy entitlement of the older hutch rabbits wastes an opportunity to teach young viewers about the cruelty of keeping rabbits in such small spaces. In reality, they would be miserable. However, there was probably not much awareness of such rabbit welfare issues back then. Hopefully there is more now. There is one key feature of this episode that is the first time something from the original novel appears on film. In the 1972 novel, 3 rabbits are liberated from Nuthanger Farm. Clover, who goes on to have the first litter born on Watership Down, another doe called Haystack, and her buck called Boxwood. Clover's buck Laurel has to be left behind. Although Clover does appear in the 1978 film, the raid on Nuthanger Farm is a complete failure and she is not liberated. Therefore, the freeing of Clover alone in this episode makes this the first time she has been portrayed as a free rabbit on Watership Down, making that one aspect of this episode very much canon. Next time, the rabbits of Watership Down return to Ephrafa. Will they have more success this time?